I still remember the exact moment everything started to unravel. It was a Tuesday night, cold, quiet, too normal for what was about to come. Brett sat me down on the couch, his face pale, like he hadn't slept in days. I talked to my mom. Again, he said. My stomach dropped. Even before he finished the sentence, he looked at me like he was bracing for an explosion, but I just blinked, waiting, heart racing. We were 3 months away from our wedding. Save the dates had already gone out. The dress was hanging in my closet, wrapped in plastic, untouched. I had a Pinterest board full of centerpieces, color schemes, and seating charts. I just ordered custom napkins with our initials. He said his mother didn't think we were compatible, and that maybe she had a point. It wasn't just about me, he said. It was about our differences. Our families didn't align. Our social circles didn't mix. I remember staring at him in disbelief. The man who once said he loved me because I was grounded, real, and warm now sounded like a stranger quoting a checklist from a debutante handbook. I asked him if he was breaking up with me. He didn't answer right away. He just kept saying how hard this was, how confused he felt, how much pressure he was under. My throat was closing, but I stayed quiet. I wanted him to say it out loud. Finally, he said it. I think we should call off the wedding. There was a ringing in my ears. I looked down at my ring, still on my finger, still glowing under the lamplight like it meant something. I wanted to scream, to ask if he was serious, but all I could do was nod. I stood up without saying a word. I walked to our bedroom, took off the ring, and placed it on the nightstand. Then I packed a duffel bag with the basics: pajamas, toothbrush, phone charger. He didn't try to stop me, didn't ask me where I was going, didn't say he was sorry. That silence told me everything I needed to know. I drove to Angela's that night with my hands shaking on the wheel. She opened the door and didn't even ask what happened. She just pulled me into a hug and let me fall apart. I hadn't cried in front of anyone in years, but that night, I sobbed until my face hurt. The betrayal, the humiliation, the shame, it all came crashing down. And under all of that pain, a seed of anger began to grow. Because Brett didn't break up with me. He let his mother do it. He let her judge me, belittle me, push me out, and then used her voice as an excuse to walk away. I wasn't good enough for their world, apparently, but I knew the truth. I was never the problem. And this wasn't the end. It was the beginning. The first week after leaving Brett was a blur. I stayed in Angela's spare room, curled up in a ball most nights. Everything felt loud. My thoughts, the silence, the ache in my chest. Angela cooked, reminded me to eat, even handled my phone for me. I couldn't bear the notifications, especially not the ones from Brett's mom, Susan. Yes, she had the nerve to text me, like nothing happened. Her messages were short at first. I hope you're okay. Let me know if you'd like to talk. Then came the real one. You'll regret walking away from my son. I showed it to Angela, who nearly threw my phone across the room. That woman had destroyed my engagement with a smile, and now she wanted pity, validation. I wasn't sure which. I didn't respond. I blocked her number, then Brett's. At least, I thought I did. He started emailing me instead. The first one was just a subject line. Can we talk? I didn't open it. I refused to give him more access to my peace. Instead, I made a spreadsheet. Yep, a spreadsheet. One tab for what I needed to retrieve from the apartment. One tab for vendors to cancel. One for costs I'd already paid and hoped to recover. Angela called it my heartbreak logistics plan. I called it surviving. I went back to the apartment once, while Brett was at work. Angela came with me, arms crossed the whole time like a bodyguard. I walked through our old space like a stranger. Everything looked smaller, duller. The photos were still on the fridge. The couch still held the imprint of our Sunday night routines. I grabbed what mattered: clothes, a few books, sentimental things. Left the ring, left the framed photos, left the coffee mugs we'd bought together. Each item I left behind felt like shedding a weight, until the space didn't feel like mine at all. Just a shell, a stage where I'd played the role of someone's perfect fiancé, and forgotten who I really was. Angela drove me back in silence. I think she knew I didn't want to talk, but when we got home, she poured me a glass of wine and just said, "You didn't deserve any of this." And that broke me all over again. Not because it hurt, but because part of me had started to believe I did. Grief makes you doubt yourself. You replay every conversation, every fight, every choice. Could I have worn different clothes? Said less at that dinner? Made his mother like me more? The spiral is cruel and endless, until one day it just stops. And that day came unexpectedly. I was scrolling mindlessly when I saw a wedding photo. Not ours, not his, just a random influencer. But instead of crying or getting angry, I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because I finally saw the ridiculousness of it all. I had bent over backwards to be accepted by people who never truly saw me. I had dimmed myself, softened my edges, made myself smaller. And for what? For a family that saw me as a resume, not a person? For a man who couldn't stand up for me even once? No, not anymore. A few days after that laugh, I started to feel different, like the grief had shifted, not gone, but changed. Less like drowning, more like wading through deep water. Still heavy, still exhausting, but I could breathe. I updated my resume, scheduled a haircut. Angela noticed right away. "You look lighter," she said, handing me my coffee. I shrugged. "I think I finally believe it's over." And I did. Not just the wedding, but the version of me who tolerated less than I deserved. That version died the night Susan told me I was nothing. Around that time, Brett's brother Nick texted me. Just a simple, "Hey, you doing okay?" I almost didn't answer. But Nick had always been decent, polite, quiet, observant in a way his mother wasn't. So I said, "I'm getting there." And he wrote back, "I hope you know none of this was your fault." We didn't talk more. I think he just needed to say it. Or maybe he saw how their family handled the fallout. Because apparently, things weren't going well for Brett. The project that had consumed him, it failed spectacularly. Deadlines missed. Investors backed out. His boss let him go 2 weeks after I moved out. And Melissa? Oh yes, she made a brief reappearance. Classic. Showed up to support him. Left 3 weeks later after realizing broke Brett wasn't as shiny as he'd been before. Rita, one of Susan's friends, ran into me at the mall. She always had a gossip glint in her eyes. "Oh, you look well," she said. Then, such a shame about Brett. His mother's just beside herself. I said nothing, just smiled politely, and walked away. 2 nights later, I had dinner with Matt, someone Angela had introduced me to through work. No pressure, just conversation. We talked about books, bad movies, and why soup should never be considered a meal. And for 3 full hours, I didn't think about Brett. Not once. Matt was kind, the kind that isn't performative. He didn't ask about my past, didn't try to play savior, just existed with me, in the moment. It felt good, uncomplicated. After dinner, he walked me to my car, didn't lean in, didn't force a moment, just said, "Let me know if you'd like to do this again." And that was the first time in months I realized I might be okay, maybe even better than okay, maybe free. I didn't rush into anything, didn't jump to label what was happening with Matt, but it was a beginning, a new kind of beginning. Not a wedding, not an engagement, just me, reclaiming joy in tiny, quiet ways. It had been 2 months since I walked away from Brett, 2 months of silence, no texts, no calls, no, "I miss you," or "let's talk." I thought maybe that was the end. Until one Sunday morning, I got a voicemail, unknown number, but the voice was unmistakable. Susan. She sounded tired, like someone unraveling at the seams. She said she was sorry, that she'd made a terrible mistake, that Brett wasn't doing well and she didn't know what to do, that she just needed 5 minutes. I didn't call back. The next day, Angela texted me. "Susan emailed me at work asking for your number." I laughed. Of course she did. Of course she couldn't take silence for an answer. But part of me wondered, why now? What changed? That night, I asked Matt. He listened, then asked the only question that mattered. What would give you peace? And that's what made me decide to meet Susan. 1 coffee, 1 hour. She looked different, smaller somehow. Her hair wasn't perfect. Her eyes were puffy. She'd ordered my favorite drink. I didn't touch it, just waited. And then she spilled. Everything. Brett had spiraled, drinking, spending, sleeping till noon. Lost all his savings trying to invest in a startup run by a college friend. Susan said he barely spoke to her anymore, that he blamed her for pushing me away. I didn't say much, just listened. Susan tried to spin it as if I was the missing piece. The only one who ever grounded him, she said. He needs your steadiness, your influence. I nearly choked. I wasn't a rehab program. I wasn't a life coach. I was the woman she once called nothing. And now I was apparently the key to his salvation. It was insulting and desperate all at once. I told her I appreciated the apology, but Brett's life wasn't my responsibility. She looked at me with glossy eyes and said, "Don't punish him for my mistakes." I stood up, told her I hoped she found peace, then walked away. And for the first time since the breakup, I felt power rush back into my bones. Not revenge, just clarity. I thought that would be the end of it. Closure, coffee, goodbye. But Susan doesn't believe in endings, only opportunities to manipulate. The next day, I got a call, then another, then 3 more, all from unknown numbers, all ignored. The voicemails were worse. First, just checking in. Then, Brett's father is cutting him off. He needs help. Then, I'd love to make amends with your parents too. Each message more frantic than the last, like she was unraveling, like I was her only lifeline. Angela saw her once, at the grocery store. Said she looked hollowed out, like a woman holding on by her nails. She asked about me. Angela told her I was doing well. Apparently that only made things worse. Then came the text. Not from Susan, from Nick, Brett's brother. He apologized. Said he didn't agree with how their mom handled things. Said he'd always thought I was good for Brett, but that Brett had to face the consequences of his choices. That no one could fix him except himself. It hit different hearing it from Nick. someone from their side acknowledging I wasn't the villain. He even thanked me, said maybe I was the only person who had ever really told Brett the truth. Meanwhile, Matt and I were moving forward. Steady, calm, no drama. We had dinner plans, weekend hikes, and matching mugs with stupid inside jokes. His lease was ending soon. He asked if we should think about sharing a space. My stomach flipped, not out of fear, out of possibility. Then Susan showed up at my workplace. She was waiting near my car after my shift, clutching a manila folder. Inside, Brett's resume. I just thought maybe your company. I cut her off. This was too far. I told her calmly, this is harassment. Do not contact me again. Her face collapsed. Tears, real ones. She begged. He listens to you. Please, he's lost without you. I didn't care anymore. I wasn't his compass. I was just the girl he let go. That night, I told Matt everything. The texts, the parking lot ambush, the resume folder. He listened quietly, then asked one question. What do you want to do? No pressure, no judgment, just space for me to choose. I didn't know. Not at first. But then, the next morning, it was Brett. A long text. No Susan this time, no phone call, just a message. He said he was sorry for everything, for not standing up for me, for letting his mom dictate our lives, for being a coward. He said he missed me every day, that he'd been too ashamed to reach out. I read it twice, then a third time, and all I felt was tired. No spark, no ache, just exhaustion. I showed Matt. He read it, said nothing, just handed me my phone back. I waited a day, then another. Susan didn't wait. She called again, asking if I'd read Brett's message. What did you think? She asked, like we were planning a brunch, not recovering from emotional arson. That's when I lost it. Calmly, frost in my voice. I told her this would be her last call, that I would block her, report her if needed, that Brett was an adult, that I wasn't responsible for cleaning up the mess she helped create. Before she could respond, I said one last thing. Maybe if you raised a man instead of a mascot for your image, we wouldn't be here. I hung up, then blocked her. Phone, email, everything. Then I sat down and wrote Brett back. I kept it short, clear, kind, but final. I told Brett I forgave him, because anger was too heavy to keep carrying. But we were done. There was no future between us. No friendship, no second chance. Not after everything. I told him I hoped he got help. For the drinking, the gambling, the dependency, and that his mother should never contact me again. Then I blocked him too. Right after hitting send, I felt it. A shift, like a door finally closing. Sealing off a draft I hadn't realized was freezing me. I took a deep breath. Went into the kitchen, made myself a cup of tea, stood by the window while the water boiled, watched the city move outside. Matt came over that evening. We made dinner, watched old sitcom reruns, laughed at the same parts, shared silence that didn't feel empty. At one point he reached for my hand, and I didn't flinch, didn't brace, just breathed. Later that night, I got a DM, Instagram, from an account I didn't recognize. It was Susan. Again. New account. Same desperation, different tone. This time she was angry, said I was heartless, said I abandoned Brett when he needed me. Most said I was throwing away history, as if history was a good enough reason to tolerate cruelty. I blocked the account, again, and then quietly, I laughed. But it didn't stop there. Of course it didn't. The emails started next. Different addresses, each more desperate than the last. Susan begging, Susan bargaining, Susan accusing. Then came the letter, handwritten, folded twice, left in my mailbox. Like a curse. I didn't read the whole thing, just enough to see the words, "You were the best thing that ever happened to him." Funny how people only see your worth when you're walking away. Then last Saturday, a knock at the door. I opened it and froze. It was Brett, standing in the hallway, disheveled, eyes glassy, not wasted but not sober either. And behind him, Susan, hovering, like a ghost with a purpose. I couldn't speak at first. Matt came up behind me, asked, "Everything okay?" Brett's face changed. That look, when a man realizes he's been replaced. Susan started talking fast, rambling, saying they just wanted to talk, that Brett missed me, that he wasn't himself, that he needed me. I stepped into the hall, closed the door behind me. I kept my voice steady, low. "This isn't okay," I said. "You can't show up here." Brett said nothing, just stared. And then he turned to Susan and said, "This is what I told you would happen. You made it worse." Silence. Then he looked at me, eyes tired, but finally clear. "I'm sorry," he said. "Not just for back then, for now too. For not standing up for you, for letting her speak for me, for everything." I nodded. Not forgiveness, just acknowledgement. He turned and walked away. Susan hesitated, tried one more look, but I'd already turned back to the door. Inside, Matt waited. No questions, no jealousy, just presence. This morning, Nick texted, said he took Brett to his first Gamblers Anonymous meeting, said he's trying, said no updates, dates unless I ask. I won't ask. Matt and I are leaving for a weekend trip tomorrow. Small mountain town, cabin, books, silence. I've changed my email, told work to notify me if Susan shows up again. A year ago, I was planning a wedding. Now, I'm building a life, on my terms, with someone who doesn't make me shrink to fit. And if there's one thing I've learned, sometimes peace looks like choosing yourself, even if no one claps when you do it. But trust me, that applause you were waiting for, you'll hear it, inside, louder than anything else.